What's going on, everyone? It's Charizard here. I hope you are all well. Today we are doing a quick breakdown of the Zamorak boss fight, some changes that have been upcoming, what I feel the first week of Zamorak's release has been like, and I'd love to hear your thoughts as well in the comments down below. So after you've watched this video, let me know what you think of the Zamorak boss fight, what you'd like to see, what you really like, what you don't like. I'd love to see what you guys also think. So I'm not going to bore you by reading all of it out, but I will highlight some of the important things that I encountered while I was doing it. Of course, you guys can read. There's some really good changes in here for the hotfixes. The main ones that I want to draw attention to are the story mode damage reduction. That was not being applied properly. My first ever kill was the story mode to understand at least the route and how to get there, and my first encounter with the mechanics. So that's really good that they've now applied the 90% damage reduction, because that didn't actually exist on release. Of course, the reduced HP scaling in Enrage mode is going to be massive as well. The Hellhounds dropping clue scrolls. My very first run on story mode, I got 21 hard clues, all of them from Hellhounds on my first run through. Yes, I didn't know the route, so I killed all the Hellhounds, and the drop rate was insane. I would also like to point out, however, that actually I believe it was Nuznuz, another Runescape content creator. If you haven't seen him, go check him out. He did a video on very difficult achievements a while back, and one of them is that people haven't completed the drop logs on Iron Men and Hardcore Iron Men for all of the drop logs in clues, or at least it's very rarely done, I believe he said. I feel that if you're a clue scroller and you're not a big fan of PVMing or bossing, it would be nice for the new content to actually help these people out. So maybe don't have it quite as insane as 21 hard clues for a run through on story mode that's not difficult, but at least make it so that it's worth it more so there's a new technique. It's something new for clue scroll hunters to go and farm and do. I think that's really important for RuneScape to remember, that if they bring out a new boss, it doesn't just have to be PVMers that get everything from it. There's plenty of people that are skillers, clue scrollers, questers, and it's nice to at least make the new content touch on these other areas if they can do so. So I think that would be a really interesting take if they keep at least a higher drop rate for the Hellhounds in ED4 for all those clue scrollers out there. As I said, I'm not going to read all of these out for you. I'm just giving you my take on some of the important ones. So feel free to give these a read if you are curious if something's been fixed, or if you're just curious in general. Now we're going to move quickly on to some of the fixed issues. Again, feel free to read, pause the video, what have you. I'm going to highlight the things that I've encountered. So the mobs inside the Zamorak Undercity have had their health reduced, but the scaling is slightly harder for like Enrage and stuff. That's massive, because it was a big issue, and still is a big issue, that some of the enemies have so much health and the rewards are just crap. I mean, I've noticed some people saying that they haven't got slivers for like, I don't know, 4 hours of dungeon play, and it's just insane, I mean, personally, I haven't had that. A really useful tip is make sure you bring the lucky charms, which you can buy from Demonheim, just like you can for the previous EDs, but for ED4, those can also trigger and drop slivers as well. So don't forget to bring those along to get those extra chances for slivers. The amount of money and the usefulness of the items you can make with them are absolutely insane, so jump on the wagon as quickly as you can. Next, we've got addressing a safe spot within the fight of Eterna, the Ritual Leader, who is the second mandatory boss that keeps players safe from her spiked floor traps. Now, these spiked floor traps hit like a bus, and they're a pain to deal with if you're running around the room, which I did on my first run through, and it was a nightmare. Again, I'm not really sure about this, because we want to get to the boss, right? We don't want pointless gated stuff. I think the idea of that boss is really cool. I love the voiceover that Mod Black Witch did for it as well. It's really cool and in an interactive fight, but you don't want these things in higher enrages to just take more time for the sake of taking more time. So they do need to be careful with that. As I said, read through. I can't offer any feedback on things like the Chaos Roar melee ability and stuff like that. The Burnt Bones now working with the Bone Crusher thing is a really good one as well. I really like that. But as I said, there's loads of good changes in here. Have a look, read them through, and now we're going to go into our pros and cons and the good and the bad of this week's update. So starting off with the good things, I think the ED4 drops at the lower enrage, the normal mode and the story mode loot, all of that kind of stuff is really cool. The slivers, the drops, the new stuff that affects older content. I did a video on the Arch Glacial with the Leng artifact enhancing items. I think that's absolutely badass. bringing stuff that's slightly older back into the fold with a new update is always good fun. I really think the Zamorak boss fight is incredibly engaging. I think it's really good fun. Mechanics are cool. The boss looks insane, as you can see on screen. I think that they've done a really good job with the boss fight too. I think the new enrage system is absolutely badass as well. I think having people being able to show off their impressive feats on the boss and everybody being able to see the highest in rage and how fast it was and who's on the high scores is really, really good. So if we can keep that going for more bosses, that would be awesome. And of course, who can forget the new loot? Obviously, there's a few videos, not many, out there with the new bow. I think In It Yeah, another brilliant RuneScape content creator, he put a video out there to do with the new bow. That looks really, really cool. It looks like there's going to be a lot of new stuff coming out that's going to affect other parts of the game, and that's so important. So again, another massive pro or good thing with this update. Do let me know if you think I've missed anything at all. These are the main highlights. There are probably things I've missed going through the positives of the new Zamorak boss fight and the update itself, but I think it's really, really cool what we have so far. So starting off with some of our negative ones. These are only negative ones that I believe may be being changed in the patch notes coming up, or things that might be fixed in the future, and it's my experience. Do let me know if there's anything you disagree with or things that you think are negative that I miss. So first off, I'd like to mention the health gating and the amount of health on enemies throughout the dungeon in Enrage. So obviously they have addressed this, but this is obviously a massive negative that we've endured for the first week. The amount of health that some of the enemies have is absolutely absurd. It takes too long to go through, and you don't get much more reward than you would doing it on normal mode for the actual ED4. So I think that's a negative 100%. The next one I want to address is skipping Zamorak at 25 kills and the impact of actually having that in place. So I believe that you should be able to skip ED4 to get to the boss if that's the intention of the design. You can't do that in any of the previous EDs, but if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. It's their game. But on the flip side of that, the dungeon itself on Higher Enrage is not worth it. So yes, people could say that you do the ED4 to get the slivers, and of course they'd be right. But at the moment, as it stands, the amount of time it would take to do it on a higher enrage is not worth your time. You could still get the slivers doing it on normal mode or a lower enrage than higher. I think they should implement higher rewards for the enrage system through the actual elite dungeon as well as Zamorak himself. I think that would be a really good idea. If you get to a higher enrage, you get a higher chance for slivers. 100%, that's what they should do. And of course, lastly, how can we forget the mandatory mini-bosses not being rewarding enough? Of course, I understand that they are mandatory mini-bosses and you need to do them, and I actually think the second fight in particular is very engaging and quite a bit of fun. The first boss, however, teleporting all the way around the room and stuff is just a pain, and it's another almost gated time measure. It's something to make it take more time without being challenging or difficult. But after all of that, you only get your 5k dungeon tokens and nothing else really. You might get, I don't know, a few uncommon relics or whatever, you know, that sort of stuff. But that's not very rewarding. In previous elite dungeons, you have the same, but they are optional mini-bosses. You don't have to do them. They don't teleport around the room. They don't have some insta-kill mechanic as such in the same way. Well, not insta-kill, but, you know, heavy damage taken. It doesn't have an enrage system, so they don't get more health. This does. So I feel like if it's going to be the case with an enrage system that they get harder and they teleport around the place, it is worth them having slightly more rewards for having level up the enrage system and go through these kills every single time. So there you have it. That is what my take is on the good and the bad and the updates upcoming for Zamorak boss and ED4 tomorrow. Let me know what you guys think. Once again, I'd love to know what you guys are thinking about and how much you've enjoyed it or things that you think could be better. Do let me know your experiences down below in the comment section, and I'll see you all in the next video.